Shortly after takeoff, Southwest Airlines Flight 3006 loses their right engine. Let's track along and find out what happens with this. It's got an interesting conclusion, and I've got some thoughts on the kind of craziness that happens at the end.
Southwest 3006 declaring an emergency. We just lost number 2 engine.
Southwest 3006, do you want to turn back to come back to the airport?
Straight out for now, please, and see 3,000 feet would be good if you give that to us.
Okay, so Southwest loses their right engine right after takeoff. Now, this is something that pilots train for all of the time. It's called a V1 cut, and the most dramatic of that is just as the nose wheel lifts off the runway, you lose one of your engines, and I'm about to go to training. I'm going to practice that for, I don't know, the 1,000th time in my career, but that's the most critical phase of flight. You're the heaviest, you're got the power all the way up, and you're the slowest. If you lose an engine, then you got to have the good skill set to put the proper rudder in and so forth to fly that thing straight out. Now, one of the things we're also trained on is to fly runway heading to 3,000 feet. Why? Because the airspace immediately downstream from the runway is cleared out, and it's like a funnel. It gets wider and wider and wider the farther from the airport you get. But up to 3,000 feet, generally speaking, is a good safe altitude at almost every airport. There are exceptions to that. I'll talk about those in a minute. So Southwest is trained, runway heading to 3,000. They ask for that, and they're going to get it.
Southwest 3006, permanent 3,000, maintain 3,000.
All right, runway heading 3,000, Southwest 3006.
So Southwest 3006 is a Boeing 737. Okay, every airplane at Southwest is a 737. They're on their way from Houston's Hobby Airport to San Jose del Cabo, and I'm telling you what, I really would be disappointed if I had to come back to Houston if I was on my way to del Cabo, but that's what's going to happen to them. At the end of this event, which for the most part with an engine failure is kind of uneventful, they handle it really terrifically. There's an evacuation on a taxiway, and I'm still scratching my head over this evacuation. So hang out to the end because I want to talk about that evacuation.
Tower couple 3006 is on the R9.
So 3006 up tower, truck in position, runway 22, clear land.
Okay, 22 for the land of Virginia passengers and Southwest.
Okay, so we're going to fast forward now. They've gone that runway heading to 3,000. They now got their airplane cleaned up. They brought the flaps up. They brought the gear up. They're now handling the shutdown of the right engine. They've got all that taken care of. They're coming back around now to land at runway 22 in Houston, and we pick up the action from there.
Roger. 5, the next aircraft to land is the emergency aircraft.
Okay, so Ops 5 is one of the fire engines. It's either a full-on fire engine or one of the pickup trucks. Maybe the one that's got the fire chief in it, but basically they're telling Ops 5, that's who's going to respond first to this aircraft, that the next airplane that they see landing is the emergency aircraft.
And what we got for total onboard 139 and fuel remaining at 33,000 pounds.
Okay, if you followed this channel for any period of time, you're really good at this point in the emergency. They need to know what your intentions are, how many souls on board, and what the fuel state is. They've given all three of those things. Everybody's now got all the information. Everybody's ready to land this airplane. But then they're going to evacuate. Hold on to that. So here's a picture.
They are going to shut down the runway for a while. May have to hold you out. It just depends on if they're ready to come in yet or not. AR-27.
Okay, here's what we're looking at. Now, ground control is going to start talking to the fire chief as they head on over there to Southwest. And in this picture, you can see Southwest has turned off the active runway and they're on a taxiway. So a couple of thoughts from Captain Steeeve on that. Whenever I'm going to evacuate an aircraft, I'm going to do it on the runway. Why is that? I don't care about anybody else coming in or going out at that point. I care about the passengers on my airplane. And I also care about those fire trucks that you can see here in the picture being able to get access to the entirety of my airplane. It's wider on the runway than it is on the taxiway. I don't want those guys to have to drive off into the grass or into the mud and get stuck. I don't want passengers having to come down the slides and go into the mud and all that. I want a wide open path for all the fire crews to get to me. These guys turned off onto a taxiway. I'll give you some thoughts on why I think they did that in a minute.
7, you can proceed on Gulf, cross runway 22. Aircraft is going to hold on Yankee, or I'm sorry, on Hotel. Is Southwest 3006 able to pull up a little bit or no? it's going to be possibly 30 minutes. They had a emergency aircraft that landed, and they're evacuating down at the end, so it's going to be a while.
Okay, so now he's talking to other traffic about how long it's going to take for Southwest to get off that taxiway and so forth. He's asking, can they pull forward a little bit? He's going to tell them in a minute, no, it's too late for that. The people are already evacuating from the aircraft. You can see on this video people sliding down the slides. Now, folks, I don't advocate getting your phone out, but somebody did, and they filmed jumping down the slide. Let me talk to you for a minute about what to wear on an airplane. Why is that important? Because you might have to go down one of these slides. And although that kind of looks like it's sort of fun, you're jumping on kind of a fun slide, this is not a water slide where you're going to just slide right down easily. It's the surface on those slides are actually rough. And the longer the slide, the more time you spend on that rough surface. We used to tell female passengers in the old days, if we were going to evacuate an airplane, remove your pantyhose. Why? Because the nylon or the polyester material gets heated up when you go down one of those slides, and it'll burn. It'll burn right to your skin. So if you're in shorts, you're gonna get road rash going down these things. My encouragement to you is this: wear something cotton, jeans, something that breathes, maybe a long sleeve shirt, and shoes that stay on your feet. If you ever have to get out of an aircraft in an emergency, you're going to be thanking good old Captain Steeeve that you wore those things, because otherwise you're going to get road rash coming down these slides. So they did. They came down the slides. Everybody's coming out successfully. I'll talk to you about why they evacuated here in just a second.
That was 22 for you as well. I don't know if you want to shut down. I'll let you know when we get the runway back open.
Did you say something about the runway being closed earlier?
Yeah, it's closed currently. We had emergency there at the end of the runway there. Hopefully we'll get it open here in the next 15 or 20 minutes, hopefully.
Okay, well, let's get down there now, thanks. Getting out of here, that one.
It's hard to say. We're trying to get the runway clear, and there's passengers that evacuated down at the end, so they're just trying to get that situated. I'll keep you updated.
Okay, let me talk about what that a tower controller just said. He's talking to another airplane. He asked how long until the airport opens up again. He said, we're not really sure. It's probably not going to be all that long. They have to get everybody situated down there. A passenger, he said, evacuated. Now, there are four reasons. I think there's four reasons that people would evacuate onto a taxiway or a runway. Number one is Captain Steeeve, the captain, has commanded an evacuation. So when we touch down in an emergency, I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to work through my evacuation checklist. I'm going to hit the mic for the PA, and I'm going to say to people, this is the captain, remain seated, remain seated, remain seated. I'm going to say that if I want them to stay in their seats. Many times it's safer to stay on the airplane than it is to go down those slides. And you can see from this picture, people all over the place and trucks pulling up. It's very dangerous. You could twist an ankle. There's lots of bad things that can happen. The second thing I'm going to say is, this is the captain, evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. At that point, the flight attendants spring into action. They will stand up, they will open up the exits, the slides will deploy, and they will begin barking commands at you to get into the aisle, to get onto that slide, to get out of that airplane, and don't take anything with you. Funny story about this. I was just talking to a flight attendant about that, and they were in an evacuation. They were barking at the people, don't take anything with you, don't take anything with you. And this lady walks up, and she's got her child in her hands, and she hands the child to the flight attendant and jumps out of the airplane. He's standing there now, barking out his commands with an infant, all right? So keep your child with you, but don't take your luggage. That's what they mean by that, all right? So one would be a captain commanded evacuation. The second would be the flight attendants command an evacuation. And so maybe there's something up front I don't see. The cabin's starting to fill with smoke, or for whatever reason, they think it's time to go. They can now do the same thing. They can get on the PA and they can say, evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. Again, they're going to open up the doors. The slides are going to come out. They're going to start barking commands at you. That's the second one. The third one is the passengers actually start an evacuation. Now, this has happened in the past. It's not the way to do it, but the passengers can get to the doors and open them up, or the overwing exits. Many times, if you sit in one of those exit rows, they're going to say to you, are you willing and able to help in an emergency? Well, guess what? You're the first one out that door. You can open up that door and go. So sometimes that is what happens. So those are the three main ways. The fourth way is if a single passenger just panics. right? The captain says, remain seated, remain seated, remain seated. And somebody just gets so nervous at what's going on, they open up one of those overwing exits and out they go onto the wing. That's very unfortunate. Do I think that happened here? I'm going to step out on a limb, no pun intended. I think that's what happened. I think when the air traffic controller here says we've got a passenger, I think this whole thing was started by a single passenger. Now, I've listened to many news stories that covered this event, and nobody said a single passenger started it. But at the same time, nobody on the crew would admit to that if that's the way it happened. Now, if you were part of that crew, you were on that airplane that day, I want to hear about it in the comments. Was Captain Steeeve right about that? Or was it just a normal commanded evacuation by the captain or the flight attendants? If it was any of those, I'd like to hear the details to see if I was right about that. But it could have been any one of those. Everybody was safe. Nobody twisted an ankle on this one. The airport took about 30 minutes to resume operations. But this is one of those things where I'm not sure this is exactly how they intended for this to end up. It ends up being a successful evolution with the engine fire and the single engine landing and the evacuation. All in all, it ends up being a great outcome for everybody. Everybody is safe and they're ready to go fly another day. Now you know. I'm Captain Steeeve. Fly safe.